There's so much to talk about.
Yeah.
You're 47.
That's correct.
Right.
I'll be 48 in a few weeks. Exactly election day.
Yeah.
I'll be 48.
And most times when you get talked about or you get researched, what comes up is activist.
Yes.
Activist.
Yeah.
Activist. Even your media, quote unquote, side of things came up from activism.
Yes.
Does that qualify you to be president?
No. You see, when you hear about activists, there are people who are actively doing something. And what qualifies me for presidency is that I have done good things for this country for 30 years consistently. And I've done it actively engaging politically. So the description is what is convenient for media. But you also should not forget that I've been an entrepreneur. I started Sowore Reporters some 12 years ago, and it competed very well. I'm not saying that is enough, but I've also been a university professor for 8 years in New York, teaching post-colonial Africa history. So a lot of people don't know some of these things about me, but there's nothing wrong with being tagged an activist. Mandela was an activist. He came directly from prison, practically, to become the president of South Africa. Very stabilizing presidency in the country. And it was a presidency that saw the transition from an oppressive apartheid regime to a democratic era. They fought for it, and they led that process. The same thing with Obama. Obama was even described as a community organizer. So in the order of things, probably that's even lesser than activism, the type that I have done.
Because a lot of people believe critics don't always make the best of what it is they criticize.
No, it's not about that. You cannot generalize that simply because I've not just been a critic. It's different if I'm just sitting down there writing articles, but I've actually led processes. I've led movements. I've been part of, a movement that brought democracy to this country. So if someone is good enough to fight for democracy, why is it not good enough to lead a democratic process?
You mentioned Sowore Reporters.
Yes.
There. Let's talk a bit about Sowore Reporters.
Go ahead.
Because there's a lot of opinions about what Sowore Reporters stands for.
That's what Sowore Reporters does. It promotes a variety of opinions.
Do you think, or do you agree with people who have said many times that, Sowore Reporters is not necessarily the fairest when it comes to critiquing?
When you say that, you have to be specific. What is it that Sowore Reporters does? Sowore Reporters report on events as they're happening, with a different flair, instantaneously, which is different from instant. So we are breaking news. We are doing a lot of investigative reporting. We are diving deep into the bowels of politics and finding out things that nobody could have ever found out in the country. And when these things are served hurt to the people, sometimes they are unbelievable until then they become, truthful.
But you also went for the shock value a lot.
Well, wouldn't it shock you that a president of Nigeria had been dead for 5 months before he was finally buried under Yaradua? Who could believe that? But he was signing budgets, and they were implementing it. They were writing in this country, and newspapers, television stations were reporting that he's well, and they saw him climbing stairwell somewhere, and that he's resuming at the time that he was dying. Clerics went to see him and said they saw someone who is resuming the next day, Christians and Muslims.
Did you have the facts?
Of course.
To present at the time?
Of course, we did. We had the facts showing that the man was brain dead 5 months before he died. So who could deal with that? Who could deal with that? Nobody could deal with this kind of high-level information sharing that shocked. Everybody was shocked when he died. And Sowore Reporters was the first to report that Yaradua was dead, including reporting to his special senior assistant on media at that time, Segun Adeni, and he wrote that in his book. So that shock value came with doing real journalism.
But that could also present a problem for people who might want to probably buy into your movement, where they believe, because you've come from activism, you constantly criticize government, you run a media house that went for the shock value, and trouble seems to be around your name a lot.
No. I want you to walk back with me again.
I want to finish.
Yeah.
How does that, because there's a lot of talk about, the competence and the temperament of a president.
No.
Doesn't that say a lot about what your temperament might be?
No, my temperament is in tandem with what I do, which is to speak truth to power, to stand by what I believe, to be convincing, and to stand with conviction, So, and in the process, some people might find that to be a little bit too forward. And I want to use that so that people can understand. But it has never diminished my value or my contribution to society. It has never prevented me from saying this is what is right and standing by what is right. And it has not in any way diminished my brain power. It has not diminished my contribution to the country. And I'm saying that there's evidence to show for it. So what sometimes people call temperament is confidence. When you have the confidence to say, this is a story that is true and people don't believe it. I'll give you another example. A governor who had just won an election died. That was former governor of Kogi State, Audu. All the TV stations were there at the election, covering the election. Radio stations, everybody was there. They could not believe that Sahara reporters were reporting that someone they claimed was alive had died. And everybody called me out and said, this is a lie, we just saw him. Some people said they were eating with him. And then the next day, a few hours later, they discovered the media companies that were there could not find the story.
All right.
So when I stood by that, when Sahara reporters stood by that, we were cussed out. How could this be? Do you know what they did the next day, the media did? They said that he was going to resurrect at 9 a.m.
We're going to take a break. Let's take a break on that. When we come back, we're going to go into the specifics of what you really want to do as president. We'll be right back.